Okay, let's dive into the source you've shared with us. We're looking at a specific statement from Reuben Abati, right? Released Friday, June 6th.
That's right. And the document, well, it positions this as a direct response. It's about claims made by Larry Olayinka on Arise News on their morning show.
Got it. So our job here is to kind of unpack this specific statement, see what points Abati is making, and, what insights we can get just from this public response, strictly based on what you've provided.
Exactly.
So what does he start? What's the first big point?
Well, it hits hard right away with a very clear denial. The statement quotes Abati saying, "I have never approached Minister Nyesom Wike to beg for money. That is a lie." That's the main thrust right at the top.
Okay, very direct. But I remember reading he adds something else, a kind of nuance to that, about maybe someone else involved.
Yes, exactly. That's a really key part of the statement. He clarifies that if anyone else, and he actually mentions an ex-partner, specifically if they went to Wake using his name, asking for money, that it was totally unauthorized, false pretenses. And he even says Wike would be right to call that fraud.
Ah, okay, so distancing himself from actions taken by others in his name.
Precisely. Seems like a way to cover that angle, yeah.
Then the statement brings up something else that feels, significant in his experience with the EFCC.
It does. The source details this. He confirms, yes, he was invited for questioning by the EFCC, but he frames it carefully, calling it a lawful and procedural engagement.
Right.
And then adds two very specific details. One, he was never asked to return money. Two, that the EFCC, under the former chairman, Ibrahim Magoo, apparently apologized to him later.
Including that apology seems quite pointed.
It definitely adds weight to his side of that history, suggesting maybe a past misunderstanding that was resolved in his favor. It sort of preempts questions about financial dealings.
Okay, shifting focus a bit, how does the statement handle Lara Olayinka, the person who made the initial claims?
Yes. The tone there is, quite dismissive. Abati is quoted saying, Olayinka clearly misused the word hubris, even suggests he needs a dictionary.
Wow, okay.
And importantly, he refuses to engage directly. Says Olayinka is not my peer. He states he's waiting for a more meaningful conversation from Olayinka's principal, not the proxy.
So trying to control the level of the debate, perhaps, responding only to the main figure, not the messenger.
That seems to be the strategy outlined in the statement, yes. Elevate the required response level.
The source also mentioned a denial related to Rotimi Amaechi.
It did. The statement flatly denies he's Amaechi's spokesperson, or even has his phone number, calls that claim a fabrication. Just another specific point being knocked down.
Okay. And what about his absence from that Arise News show? People might wonder if he was avoiding it.
The statement addresses that head-on. It says he wasn't absent to duck the discussion. The reason given is a pre-scheduled book review.
A book review?
Yeah, for a specific large book, Oprah Benson Live and Legend, by Dr. Udu Yakubu, 550 pages. He calls it an honorable intellectual commitment.
So providing a concrete, positive reason for not being there.
Exactly. It counters any narrative about him avoiding the topic.
And zooming back out to Minister Wike himself, what's the statement's overall stance there regarding accountability?
It reinforces his previous position. He says he stands firmly by everything he said before about Wike. The key principle emphasized in the source is that Wike, as a public official, is subject to public scrutiny. The quote is, "Nobody in public service is above accountability." So it frames his comments not just as personal, but as part of a broader principle of governance.
Interesting. The statement even touches on older allegations concerning the late Buruji Kashamu based on the source.
It does make a point about that. Abati states the allegations against Kashamu were never actually proven in court. No convictions here or abroad.
Right.
And the statement argues that bringing up unproven accusations against someone deceased is, quote, in poor taste and ethically questionable. It's a comment on the ethics of public discourse itself.
Finally, how does it wrap up? Any acknowledgments?
Just briefly, yes. It mentions, thanks to his team, Rufai Oseni, Vimbai, the crew, and also his wife, Kikalomo Atanda Awo Abati, calling her strength his anchor.
So looking at this whole statement, just based on the source material you brought, what does it really show us about how these public conversations are handled?
Well, it's clearly more than just denials, isn't it? You see this mix of direct refutation on specific points, but also efforts to build credibility, like bringing up the EFCC apology or that book review detail.
And those specifics stand out.
And then broadening it out to these bigger ideas like accountability or, the ethics of how we talk about people, especially the deceased. It's all quite strategically put together in the document.
It really illustrates the different layers involved in crafting a public response like this one. You see the specific arguments, the background provided, the tone shifts.
Definitely. It's a deliberate construction.
So something for you, the listener, to think about. When you see statements like this, which blend those specific denials with these wider points about public duty and ethical commentary, how do they work to shape the narrative? What particular elements in this response, as we've unpacked it from the source, really stand out to you and how it navigates those tricky waters?
Thanks for bringing the source in today. It's always fascinating to really get into the nuts and bolts of these public statements.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks for the deep dive.